Hey folks, welcome back. It's the big barn build. Today we're going to start building some rooms, breaking this big old space down into some more manageable spaces. I'm going to show you a little bit of the layout we've got planned and a few of the walls going up. As you can see behind me, we've made a good start and it's beginning to take shape. Stick around, let's make a start. Right, today we're making a start on some of our internal lining. These internal walls have become racking walls, helping the structure of the building. It's a bit overkill on some of the walls, but we're doing it anyway. The price of 9mm OSB and the kind of rigidity and acoustics and everything, it's just going to help all through the building. So we've started lining. What we're going to do is just one side, and then that means we can still do first fix from the other side. Right, I'm checking. So do we want to put the measure up with the tape against the laser? Is that what you do?
Yeah, I've set the laser up. Hi folks. I've set the laser up. There's many ways we can do it. So we can put that, we can screw that down and then measure to the laser, like you said.
What, stack them on top?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Is this the bottom?
So either one's the bottom or the same on there.
Let's drill through some water pipes.
Yeah.
We soon found a rhythm as we were working through all these walls, and it didn't take too long to start getting some of these spaces built. We found it was best to build them in place rather than frame the whole wall on the floor and then get it up. So we did all of our stud measurements individually. There was a little bit of variation in the floor, so it made sense to do that. And while one was cutting or measuring, the other was fitting them in place. And we worked our way through. This is now looking into the laundry and the plant room area. Beyond that, where Tom is now, beyond that wall is the annex. So that's kind of our separate part of the house, which we'll be working on that side at a later point. So for now, we want to make sure those separation partition walls are up. And then the other thing we realised is the 3 metre track saw straight edge is the best thing we've got on site at the moment. We're using it for checking how flat walls are, for marking down on the slab, nice straight wall markings to go off. Of course, we were using a chalk line as well, but actually if you want just a nice simple straight line to measure from, that worked well as well. And then finally setting up the laser for all the noggins. So some walls we're thinking we might not need noggins. If they're going to be double lined with OSB both sides, then I'm kind of thinking there might not be a need for them. But where it's just plasterboard, of course, we're putting a row of noggins in. We decided to go straight run because we don't know quite what we're doing with boarding yet, instead of staggered. Now you'll see later on in this video I talk about ply lining some of the walls around here. I'm not sure if that's going to be done on this particular wall, although we are planning to hang cabinets on there. We can probably just use the studs and fix in at those points. But elsewhere, specifically where we know we're going to have lots of shelving or plant equipment, it's definitely going to make sense to have a sort of ply, 18mm ply grounding behind whatever the finished surface is. That just makes everything a lot easier, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. You'll also note that we have framed through our door opening, so we've left the structural opening ready for our door lining in the future, but we've run our bottom plate, the sole plate of these stud walls, through it, and then we're going to cut out after. A bit like doing the outside walls, it just makes the layout far simpler and also just keeps things straight. While we were marking our line down on the slab, if we've got a nice straight piece of timber to start off with, it just means that the wall's straighter and then we can just lop it out. Well, we're back where we started at the beginning of the video, but now we've got some more walls. The stud walls, I mean, we're only scratching the surface here because there's a whole load to build. And remember, upstairs is just one big space at the moment. That's got to be broken down into endless bedrooms and loft spaces and bathrooms. So this is kind of our warm-up act downstairs. We'll get to that in the future. We're going to wait probably a couple of weeks because the exciting thing is this week is all about glass. Our windows and doors are going in, and spoiler, behind the camera there's a lot of glass already fitted, but only those on Patreon would have seen that, and we'll put a few sneak peeks up on Instagram as well. But if you do want to follow along on the regular updates behind the scenes, Patreon is where we put those videos. But back to stud walls, I'll explain why we've used two different types of timber and the thinking behind that. So interestingly for us, it's all about the direction of the walls that makes a difference. The supporting walls that we'd done several weeks ago to carry some of the first floor, they were all done in 120mm timber just because it had more bearing for the joists above. We've also carried on and used that for other stud walls. This is just a partition, it sits below a steel beam, but we still decided to use 120mm. Fortunately, we had enough. We're working with James Jones and Sons, who are our timber supplier, and thankfully we have whole packs of timber to work with, so it makes sense to use it. And the reason is we want to hide these steels. You see here we've got a 100mm box section, and if we'd done standard CLS or even 95mm timber, we wouldn't have been able to conceal this. So that's why we went for 120mm. We've done that on other original steels. Some of the old columns of the barn we're able to sail through now by using this wider timber. Now interestingly, CLS, which is 89mm, James Jones don't mill that. They have a 95mm, 120mm, and then into the joists, which is no bad thing because actually for those walls that we've done in the 95mm, it's actually a nicer timber to work with. It's much more solid. It's still eased edge. Really, it's just kind of just a beefier version of CLS, and I don't think the cost was much different between the two. But again, here we've got the 5-inch or 120mm running that way, and then as soon as we're running that way, it doesn't really matter, so we've gone to the 95mm for our partitions. So one thing that we noticed, that as we're putting these up, we don't want to be taking load onto these walls. Where they've got a footing and where they're intended to, that's fine. Where they're under a steel, it's not like we're going to push the steel up. But there are occasions where we're building walls mid-span of the joists, and the last thing we want to do is to, while it might take the bounce out of the joist a little bit, we don't want to be pushing up and taking the load of upstairs onto that wall, because although it's a 150mm slab below it, it's not designed to be supporting those walls. Therefore, we've framed them in sight, but we've just made sure that our joists are not being really whacked in and pushing the top plate up. It's just a case of kind of getting a good fit, but not too snug, if that makes sense. The other option, where we can, is to build the wall on the floor, stand it up. But of course, if you have a really flat floor, you might get away with that. If you have a good but not crazy laser level floor, then you can't really do that without lots of shims above. But there's lots of options anyway. Okay, so we are in the plant room. I say plant room, Joe says laundry. It's kind of laundry over here, plant room over there. There may be sliding or divider wall of some sort, but for now we just want access. So over there is where the underfloor heating is, cylinders, underfloor air source heat pump, flow and return to outside, wiring centre, everything's going to be on here. And therefore I've got a bit of a question. We've got 18mm ply, which we're going to paint, varnish, pre-finish to put up there. I think it's always a good idea. I've done it in the past. Actually, I'm my own worst enemy, because what I'm saying now is keep it clean, but actually in the past we've ended up putting pipe work and boilers and stuff onto bare plasterboard with screw. You can never get back in there to plaster and paint it. So I've learnt my lesson. I'm going to pre-finish the boards, 18mm. That means people installing, whether it's us, anyone else, can put fixings, boxes, clips, anything where they need it, wherever they want. No drywall fixings needed. So that's going to be all the way along and around the corner. So my question is, what do you do with it? It's your normal sort of 18mm Chinese ply. It's good enough for what we need. It's actually not bad. It's fairly clean faced. I could just varnish it and put it up. But then when you want to move a fixing, you're going to have holes. You can't really fill and repaint. I could paint it white, keep it super clean. I could paint it a wacky colour. Or I could do black. I've seen some black plant rooms with copper in front. Looks quite cool. I don't know. I've not really put too much thought into it yet, but let me know what you do, because we need to get that up in the next week. Anyway, plant room aside, this is the laundry, appliances, cupboards. We put the dividing wall in here, but the other side is the toilet, shower room, which is accessed from the mud room, boot room, whatever you want to call it. It's where you wash the dog, bottle feed a lamb, whatever it might be. That's where it's all happening. But we wanted to get this wall up, so it's just done, and we can start breaking up these spaces. There's a few more walls that we're going to put off over there, because we've set up the miter saw in the workshop-y bit over in the corner. We need to be able to swing large lengths of timber around, so there's no point in putting those in. We can hold off for about a month. So there's certainly a lot more stud walls to get done, and we're slowly finding our kind of pace and rhythm through it all. I think we've got enough timber on site, so it's one of the nice things that there's not a massive part of the budget needed in the future for that. We've got the timber. It can sit here, and when we run out of money and funds on a certain part of the build, we've always got that to turn back to. So I've got to get this brick order in and get started on all the brick and cladding and stuff on the outside. Some of that's quite costly, as of course was the balance we had to pay on all the windows and glazing, but we can always take a break from that and come back to stud work. So that's our sort of backup whenever we need to do anything. Walls are there to be built. Some of it will be OSB lined, some of it won't, but it should be that by mid-May we can start getting electrics kind of fed through the building and start just getting a feel for how the spaces are working, because interestingly we're beginning to realise how there is lots of light in some areas, not so much in others, and while we modelled that a lot in the CGI stuff right at the beginning, it's easier to tell now to actually cut away the membranes from the openings, and we can see how the morning it's a bit dull here, so we might need to push to get on and get those Velux in. So anyway, that's all for me to do the head scratching on. Now the stud walls have always been on the back burner. It was a bit of a filler this week of getting the stud walls in, but now we're going to be moving on to the glazing. Now is when all the fun happens, and we're going to be sharing them with you, the process of the pros installing the sliding doors, the bit of training that we had on site, and then of course all of our window fitting, all the windows, the doors, getting the windows upstairs. I've just got a genie lift dropped off, so hopefully we can get those up tomorrow as well, and then we'll be flooded with light, I hope. Be sure to check us out on Patreon if you do want to see a bit more behind the scenes, but I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.